Hello, my name is Jennifer Roback. Ronna Davis and I are going to talk with you today about women in leadership and driving change for sustainability in our industry. I've been in the industry a long time as a manufacturer SE, as a consultant, and even as an IT services provider. So I have a lot of experience in the industry. And some of the things that we'll talk about today are some of the things that I have seen and where I see this industry going. And I'm very excited about all the opportunities that are available in the industry. I'm going to introduce my friend Rona and let her tell you about her experience.
All right, thanks, Jen. I'm Ronna Davis. I work for CommScope. I'm on the strategy and technology team. I've been with CommScope for about 17 years now. And previous to that, I was in the design and construction industry and in wholesale distribution. I am going to talk specifically about sustainability today. And so let's go ahead and get started. ESG, environmental, social, and governance. It's a pretty big topic these days. In fact, it ranks in the top three priorities for large organizations and state, local, and federal governments. And it's really no wonder that we are seeing increased prioritization and action around ESG because it's increasingly becoming punitive for organizations who aren't getting on board. Asset managers like BlackRock are prioritizing ESG in their portfolios. And so if you're a large publicly traded company, you can't afford to get dropped or to get derated by these financial firms. And it turns out, guess what? Employees prefer working for companies that share their values, especially around social responsibility and mitigating climate change. Governance is critical to ESG. The reality is that without proper governance, the E and the S of ESG is meaningless. Much of what we need to accomplish in these areas is reliant on good governance, accurate reporting, and integrity in our work. Now, there is a lot of regulatory action that is starting to impact large companies and organizations. The key themes of this regulation across the globe is reporting on scope 1, 2, and 3 greenhouse gas emissions and reporting on any climate risks that your organization is facing. Now, these climate risks could be a lack of information systems, a lack of process, a lack of reporting, but it's also climate risk locations, inadequate building infrastructure, manpower issues regarding that are related to climate change, and business sustainability through climate-related regulation. Now, one of the first near global regulatory moves is the TCFD, and that is the Task Force on Climate-Related Financial Disclosures. And this task force is headed by Mike Bloomberg. They are pushing reporting regulation on publicly traded and even private companies across the globe. Now, Europe has the most aggressive regulation that has been put forth to date, where they're requiring all companies that must report climate-related risks, while the U.S. is starting with publicly traded companies. So, if you're newer to sustainability and to all the terminology around sustainability, I thought I would briefly just cover what is scope 1, 2, and 3 greenhouse gas emissions. Well, scope 1 is the greenhouse gas emissions that are considered directly related to the company, and this includes their buildings and their vehicles. Scope 2 is indirect greenhouse gas emissions. So this is the greenhouse gas emissions that are produced from delivering utility service to a company. So those first two, not that difficult to ascertain that information. Pretty simple, scope 1 and scope 2. It's some work, but relatively simple to get to that information. Now, scope 3, completely different story. It is much more difficult to gather scope 3 information. It is also indirect emissions like scope 2, but it includes upstream and downstream activities. So it's all the greenhouse gas emissions upstream from purchased goods, raw materials, transportation, waste and disposal, business travel and commuting, and leased assets. Then, from a downstream perspective, it's all the transportation from your facilities to customers. It's what it takes to process your sold goods, whatever that the greenhouse gas emissions it is to process your sold goods, the end of life, waste disposal, and then any assets that you own and lease out, your franchises, and the greenhouse gas emissions of your investments. So it goes really pretty deep there. This is a really big lift for the industry, for our ICT industry, but also for all of our customers, all those businesses out there. This is a lot of work, and I'm pretty sure that you're already starting to understand how women specifically are positioned well for the work that is ahead of us. And that's because sustainability at, at its core is really about people. It's about producing more with less. It requires a balanced approach, and it's not one and done. It is a continuous improvement journey, but it needs metrics and goals, and it requires collaboration. And so when I look at this list of what it takes to be sustainable, and I put a face to who is this? So it's a face of a woman. It's a mom, it's a grandmother, it's a caretaker, because these qualities are innately qualities that women possess. And that brings me to my final point before I turn it over to Jennifer. The ICT industry has historically been driven by technical decision making. So you've all likely heard that the three decision-making criteria: price, performance, and service. And you can only have two out of three, but not all three of those things. Well, our products are highly technical in nature, so that makes perfect sense. But the landscape is shifting towards value-based decision-making coupled with technical decision-making. And this is where women can lead, because we ourselves do more value-based decision making and value-based purchasing than our male counterparts. It's not uncommon for women to look at several facets of a problem to solve it, and looking beyond those typical technical attributes. And when we buy products, we look beyond just, will this product suit my needs? We look at how the product fits into our ethos, into our belief systems, and our values. Let's leverage that. Let's use that to pursue value-based design, value-based products, go-to-market channels with value-based messaging and service models, and then use that, or expanded into it, to build stronger, more diverse, and resilient workforces. Jen?
Hey, thanks, Ronna. So, to kind of build on what Rona's talking about, is to build a stronger, more diverse, and resilient workforce, we need to attract and retain more diverse thinkers. It is vital to our industry and meeting those environmental goals. We need more skilled ICT professionals to help drive that change. Women are particularly equipped to be transformational leaders in our industry. As active listeners, out of the box thinkers, and key contributors to a low carbon economy, we are well positioned to lead efficient, profitable projects while creating working environments that reward and retain talent, promote equality, motivate our peers, our employers, and customers to implement policies, procedures, and technologies that improve sustainability across all sectors. And then not just focusing on women, but also generational diversity is important, as well as new generations bring new ideas and ideals to solving business and technology problems, with an emphasis on value based decisions. These emerging trends in both technology and business values demand new voices and new approaches. This opens the door to new leaders. Just as the business and technology changes, so will the leadership styles. So, what is leadership and how do you define leadership? I think it's really important that we maybe change that definition. A lot of times when I talk about leadership with my peers, I will ask a group of people, how many of you are leaders in this space, or how many of you are leaders in the room? And particularly if it's a room full of women, very few of them actually raise their hand and identify themselves as leaders. And we're not always comfortable identifying ourselves as leaders because we've made it something beyond us. We've made leadership in our own minds as about changing the world. Unless I'm the leader of the free world, I'm not a leader. But we take it as the title of the leader and treat it as something that one day we're going to deserve that title. We spend so much time celebrating the things that hardly anyone can do that we start to devalue the things that we do every day. And as long as we make leadership about changing the world, even in a sustainability way, we're we give ourselves an excuse not to expect it every day from ourselves and from each other. We need to redefine leadership in those small, manageable moments, how many we create and acknowledge and pay forward. So, for example, what am I getting at is that leadership does not have to be that job title. It can be leaders among your peers. These technology changes and these business level changes, because there are two things that are changing. It's not just the tech, but it's also the go to market, as Rona talked about. Our customers are looking at a different value system when they're making decisions. And so this allows for different voices, as I talked about, the diversity of voices in leadership. And leadership can be leading a group of peers by speaking out on new ideas, encouraging others, leadership in the way that we encourage new products to be developed, new processes within our own organizations, and as we do business with our customers. I think that's something to really identify within ourselves, is what does that leadership look like? How can I define it where I sit in the organization today? Don't wait to be the king of the world. I can lead from my seat with new ideas and new voices. Once you've embraced that, then the next step is really, how do I help others and how do I champion others in my organization, within my customer base, and within our industry as a whole? And how do we address the challenge of maybe managing those diverse teams, specifically women? And a lot of times I will get questions. Um, I'm on a team of engineers, and I would say we're not 50-50 men, women. I don't think that's a stretch. So, why do we need to unlock that code of women in the workforce? And I think those are some of the things that we can certainly identify. um, some of the things that actually Sheryl Sandberg talks about in a great TED talk that she does, talking about leading for women, that 15 to 16% of those C-level jobs are held by women. Also, too, the latest World Economic Forum report states that it will take 132 years to achieve gender parity. So please don't throw your stuff away. Please don't just walk away. There's a lot of opportunity here, right? Like, I'm done, I'm out. There's a lot of opportunity for us here to close that gap. And the payoff is exactly what Rona's talking about, is as businesses are changing how they're making decisions, um, and gives us opportunity for new voices, allows for us to have a seat at the table. One of the things that I would encourage others as you're thinking about leadership is championing others, because it helps pull us all along. So, for example, if you are a peer on with other women or other diverse voices in the group, I mean, we're specifically talking about women today, but I would encourage generational and other ideas as well, is encourage those different voices to sit at the table, and don't sit on the sidelines. You sit at the table. Women systematically underestimate their own abilities. Women don't negotiate for themselves in the workforce. No one gets the corner office by sitting on the side. And boy, is that true, right? Success and likability are positively correlated for men and negatively correlated for women. We all instinctively know this, but there are also studies that talk about, for example, when there's a job opening, women won't apply unless they meet all of the criteria. Men will apply if they meet about 50% of the criteria. Who do you think is going to get the opportunity because they've raised their hand? So, the reason I encourage you guys to be aware of this information is educate yourself and then educate those around you. Pull all these other voices to the top. Sandberg gives another example in her presentation where she was giving this similar talk at Facebook. And she said, I'm going to take two more questions and that's it. So she took two more questions. And then all the women in the room lowered their hands because she was taking two more questions. However, men kept raising their hand and she was taking more questions. She wasn't even aware she was doing it until afterwards. One of the women came up to her afterwards and said,
Hmm.
you said you were taking two more questions, but you took five and they were from all men. And she said, I didn't even notice that. So the point I'm making here is that as you learn to lead, be aware of those other cues, help bring these other folks along that look different, that have different ideas, that are from a different generation, a different background. I think in our industry, not only do we need to bring the next generation and different voices, but we need to bring people from outside the industry to really give us that diversity of opinion. I think that's one of the nice things about the sustainability message is this is going to incorporate different business people and different business processes into our industry to help elevate what we do for ourselves, but also for our customers and what's being asked of our customers in the larger business environment. So I think there's a lot of opportunity here. I'm hoping you're excited about some of the changes that are coming and that you can see that the opportunity to be different, embrace that difference, embrace your diversity, and allow for us to improve as an industry with different ideas.
All right. Thanks, Jen. That was fantastic. And I learned some new stuff there, some stuff I wasn't familiar with. And I definitely want to go check out that podcast from Miss Sandberg. It sounds like it was probably a pretty good podcast. That's it. That's what we have for you today. Thank you for joining. And remember, value-based decision making. This is our sweet spot. It's our time to rise and shine, ladies. Bye-bye.